Hey, and welcome to Force of Light Entertainment. I'm your host, Michelle, and with me is my co host, my sister, Natalie.
Hello, everybody.
We kind of did a last second decide to get on YouTube and make a video, so we didn't really give you guys advance warning, but it's going to be kind of short and sweet, anyways.
We'll do better next time.
Yes. So, Natalie and I had never seen, or this past Friday, we went and saw the movie E.T., which I had never seen. And
She had not somehow.
yeah, I have never seen it. And last week we discussed Stranger Things and we brought up Steven Spielberg having an influence, which I knew just from seeing some of his other movies and seeing images of E.T. But when I went and saw E.T., I realized how much of an influence that movie really had on Stranger Things season one in particular. So we're just going to talk about that very briefly because I was just kind of like I kept leaning over to Natalie and being like they call or Stranger Things kind of this is kind of like this is like this because it just is so similar. Like they drew so much inspiration clearly from the movie E.T. So Natalie, you ready to do this?
Yeah, well, I'll say I hadn't watched ET in years, so I hadn't seen it since I had seen season one of Stranger Things. And so when we're watching it and she's pointing it out, I'm like, yeah, yep, yep, yep. I mean, just you could just see the similarities, some of the images, the way they did the camera. There was definitely a lot of inspiration there, clearly.
And speaking of Stranger Things, I got my shirt on representing my boy Dustin today. But so the movie, yeah, like you said, even just the way Steven Spielberg films this movie, it like so many of the shots are even similar. And I'll tell you what always grabbed my attention. He always gets the shot from the bottom of the driveway of their house up. And it's that reminds me, even the shots of their houses, in particular Dustin's house, there's just so many like, oh, that kind of looks like that. But literally, they were able to create with Stranger Things the look of ET. Like it looks like ET.
Yeah.
And but moving on to I noticed when I was telling Natalie, we'll start even with the family itself. And in this movie, in E.T., the mother is so oblivious. Literally, the little girl, E.T. is right there, and the mom keeps missing it because she's so in her own world. And it's just so similar to Mrs. Wheeler, who I love Mrs. Wheeler. We
Yeah.
discussed that. But Mrs. Wheeler is so in her own world in season one of Stranger Things, season one, that she literally doesn't know that there's another kid that Elle's in her house or that Steve's in the house. Like she never or Jonathan, like she never knows what's going on under her own house, which I said to Natalie, I was like, that's not happening in our house.
Yeah.
Our mom would have known. I think most mothers would know if there's kids or people in their house that aren't typically there. So I thought that was a similarity that the
Right.
mother, based off Mrs. Wheeler, and the whole thing of season one, where Elle, he brings her into his house. That whole setup was just so similar to ET.
Yes, and hiding in the closet.
Yeah, literally, he hides Elle in the closet, and with ET, he's hidden in the closet several times throughout this movie.
Putting the dress on.
Yeah, yeah, and the blonde wig.
Yeah.
Yeah. Little Drew Barrymore dresses ET up with a blonde wig and a dress, and yeah, that was
They definitely paid a lot of
homage. Yeah, they really did like a lot of homage to ET, and so you got that her the way she's dressed, and literally just that whole thing, like I said, of her. Oh, we've got Michael Smith, our brother. No, this is Sienna. Hello, Sienna.
Hey, Sage.
Our niece is on the live chat. Oh, yeah, we got another one. Hey there, how are you doing too? Yeah, we kind of threw this on last second. Glad to have both of you here. And again, back to the discussion. And you guys type in anything you noticed, any similarities between Stranger Things and ET. So we get that. And then another scene that really was like, wow, like they straight up, you want to say paid homage or kind of took from the whole scene in season one of Stranger Things. the kind of the climax of the season. Well, no, well, it's getting there when Papa and all the bad government officials, they are after the kids and after 11, and it's literally like the end of ET.
Kind of pull up to the family house in kind of an intimidating fashion.
Yes. Yeah. And even before the bike ride, yes, the government officials go through this family's house without them knowing, which Pop and the bad government officials do that. Papa. Yeah, Papa.
Good old Pop.
Yeah. And so that was very familiar or very similar. And then the bike chase was so in Stranger Things, right when there's about to be like, oh, what's going to happen? 11 uses her powers and it flips. The van flips.
Yes.
In this case, right when something's about to take place, they, ET does this little thing and they're able to fly on the bikes.
Right.
So I thought that was like, it was like, wow. But watching this, it's not even like, oh, they, something. I mean, I don't want to say they didn't copy them, but I mean,
they were inspired.
They were heavily inspired by them. But are there anything else that you?
Another thing, I guess when Elliot, the little boy in ET, first sees him, there's a flashlight, and then it goes to, I guess when they first see Elle, there's a flashlight on her face. I mean, I have to go back and watch season
there
one,
is because the boys just kind of see her, and it's like, oh, and that ends the episode. I remember that.
And kind of the basic premise of this sort of otherworldly being. I mean, 11's a human, but she has these kind of superpowers coming into, these kids' lives, or in this case, E.T. into Elliot's life.
Yeah, and you think of
and becoming a friend,
And you think with Elliot, like how devastated he is when he thinks E.T. dies, and I guess he dies like for a brief moment, but he's so devastated because he's developed this connection with this kind of otherworldly thing. And it's very similar with Mike. Pretty much their relationship, Elliot and ET, is kind of like Mike and 11.
Yeah, minus the romance factor.
Well, but in season 1 there is no romance factor. They're just
hello, Michelle.
No, they're just friends.
There was a kiss.
No, that's season 2. Yeah,
No.
it's season 2. So in season 1, it very much echoes that. So yeah, that's that. Is there anything else you thought of?
Not off the top of my head.
But
I can look.
But just the whole picture, they just really echo each other, and I really saw that by seeing ET, and it made me want to watch Stranger Things season 1. Actually, I mean that's
a great season.
It is. And then also, we saw last weekend, we saw The Goonies, another big 80s movie. And you can tell how just the group of friends and them kind of going on this adventure, you can tell that was an inspiration for Stranger Things also.
Another thing I thought of, and I think you pointed out as well, and I was just reading it on there, but you actually point out during the movie, the shed scene. You know how Elliot has that shed in the back?
Yeah.
Very reminiscent of Will Byers going to the shed to look for a monster, in his case, going to look for E.T.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, when you look through it, you'd have to write them down, all of them down. Like there's just so many moments and Stranger Things brings in like Star Wars characters. I think even in season 1, they bring up Lando Calrissian, and Elliot is playing with Lando Calrissian.
Yeah, so, announces this is Lando Calrissian.
Yeah, so they even do where he's a big Star Wars fan. These kids are big Star Wars fans. It's just all, if you watch ET, when you've seen Stranger Things season 1, you're like, wow, like they truly were inspired by.
So let me ask you, Michelle, did you like ET?
I did enjoy ET. It was kind of, I was glad we got to see it in theater because it's kind of as 80 movies, some of the 80s movies it's a little slower than movies are made today.
Yeah.
But it's still like when they take off on the bike and they're flying, like it's kind of this magical feeling.
It is. It's kind of a magical moment.
It is. So I did really appreciate ET, and then I, also really appreciate Stranger Things. So
well, and I read, just barely going over before we decided to do this kind of spur of the moment thing. The Duffer Brothers said if we could do like half as good as Spielberg did with like E.T. and some of the inspiration they drew from that, And unpopular opinion, I think they not only did it, they did it better. But
Well,
but I know it's a different time.
but you can't have
I
that.
mean, you probably can't compare
They probably wouldn't be the filmmakers they are without Steven Spielberg's
without
ET.
those
and
influences.
had that. Yeah. So I think you can't say it's better because it's like you
Yeah.
had to have Steven.
It's true.
And Steven Spielberg, watching ET, and I'd recently watched Jurassic Park, you realize what a genius director he really is. Like the
Yeah.
way the camera will zoom in on like Elliot's eyes when he's seen something, or zoom in under a doorway. Like he really captures a feeling of suspense in moments.
Right.
Even in ET when it's not overly suspenseful. So
Yeah.
he does a great job.
I mean, I imagine if you were a kid
Yes,
during
it would have been.
1982, it would have been, a little suspenseful.
Well, yeah,
Definitely.
I mean, yeah, just not as an adult.
Right. No.
But it's a very charming. I'll say that's a very charming movie. And if you like Stranger Things and haven't seen ET, I would recommend watching ET.
Which I imagine most of you have, and I'm not afraid to throw myself under the bus here. Michelle, did I shed a tear at the end?
She not only shed a tear, I looked over and I was like, "Why are you crying?" Like she had a sad moment.
When he and ET hug at the end, it got me.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I enjoyed it. But quickly before we end, this was going to be a very short little stream, because we're going to do a longer one on Wednesday. But I just want to say too, like I said, the Goonies. You do see, because we saw the Goonies last weekend. You can see how even the kids, like the kids cuss and stuff in the Goonies. You can tell there was also inspiration from that group of kids.
Yeah, I think the Goonies group is much more so.
Yeah, not the story, but
not the story, but the group and the adventure, and
yeah.
And there seems to be a thing in the 80s, kids on bikes.
Yeah.
It's just like all that kind of is very reminiscent.
Well, think about it. Think about us and growing up in the 90s and early 2000s, you rode your bike around.
That's
like today, parents are too scared to let their kids ride a bike. So, but back then you could ride it wherever.
That's true.
At least in our case, around the neighborhood. But
maybe we shouldn't have, but we did.
We're alive, so we made it through. But yeah, that's it for this episode. And in the link, when I actually create this as a video, and the link, if you have not watched our Stranger Things discussion, you should go ahead and click on that and watch that, because we dive into the characters and what makes Stranger Things so awesome, which is the characters really as much as the story. So check that out. And Wednesday, we will be back with another probably live stream, but we will be discussing kind of, I was telling Natalie, watching these 80s movies, it's made me miss the magic of these 80s movies that I feel like maybe we're lacking a little bit in today's movies. And it's probably why we were all drawn to Stranger Things, because it kind of has that old magic of 80s and early 90s feel. So
because like I said in our Stranger Things review, my first thought watching season 1 was like it was refreshing to me.
Yeah,
just because it was so different. Like we don't see stuff like that anymore.
Yeah, so be on the lookout for that, and I will give people a notice on that with Wednesday, and it'll be a longer discussion. This I was like, hey, why don't we make a video on this? We did. So that is it for this episode of Force of Light Entertainment. And again, we will be doing a live stream Wednesday, and we have new podcast episodes coming out every Sunday. Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, 80s movies really are. There's some great 80s movies.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, totally.
The Imperial, what does that say?
I don't even know how to pronounce the word.
Well, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Sienna, too. Yes, thanks both of you. Like I said, we just literally threw this on, honestly, because I didn't want to have to edit a video. So that's why we did it.
I think we're going to be live streamers.
Yeah, for the purpose of not editing.
Because we don't know how to edit.
Yes, but thank you both. And everyone else, thank you for watching. And we will see you all on Wednesday. All right, bye.
Bye.